The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the Grand Palazzo Hotel in Victoria Island, Lagos, silencing the 200 wedding guests in an instant. "You disgraceful whore." The scream tore through the reception hall like a machete through silk. "You think you can just waltz into my son's life and trap him with lies?" Amara Okonkwo stood frozen in her lavender bridesmaid dress, her 5-year-old daughter Zuri clutching her leg, as her best friend Chioma's future mother-in-law, Mrs. Adebayo, pointed a trembling finger at her from across the room. The woman's gold girly headdress seemed to quiver with rage, her expensive encore wrapper billowing as she advanced through the crowd. "Mama, please," Chioma's voice was drowned out by gasps and whispers rippling through the guests. "This woman," Mrs. Adebayo's voice rose higher, her Lagos accent thick with contempt, "had a baby out of wedlock. She was sleeping around 5 years ago, got pregnant like a loose girl, and her own family threw her into the streets like rubbish." The words struck Amara like physical blows. Her vision blurred. The elegant wedding reception, with its towering cakes, gold-draped chairs, and live juju music band, suddenly felt like a courtroom where she stood condemned. Amara was 27 now, but at this moment, she was 22 again, pregnant, terrified, kneeling before her father in their modest Suralea flat while he screamed that she had brought shame upon the Okonkwo name. She remembered her mother's tears, her younger brother Emeka's disgusted face, the door slamming behind her with nothing but a small bag of clothes and 3,000 naira to her name. "Is this true?" someone whispered loudly. "She has a bastard child. And Chioma invited her here. To a church wedding." Zuri began to cry, burying her face in Amara's dress. The little girl's cornrowed hair was decorated with colorful beads that now trembled with each sob. Amara's hands shook as she tried to comfort her daughter, but her own legs felt like they would give out. "Mrs. Adebayo, this is not the place," Chioma's fiancé, turned, tried to intervene, but his mother silenced him with a look that could melt steel. "Not the place." The older woman laughed bitterly, her neck adorned with heavy coral beads clicking together. "My son is marrying into a family that associates with women of questionable character. I have every right to protect my family's reputation." Amara's throat closed. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that it wasn't how it looked, that she had been young and in love and betrayed, but the words wouldn't come. The shame was too heavy, too familiar. It was the same shame that had haunted her for 5 years, the same shame that made her work 3 jobs to afford their tiny one-room apartment in Mushin, the same shame that woke her at night wondering if Zuri would grow up branded by her mother's sin. "Everyone knows," Mrs. Adebayo continued, addressing the crowd like a pastor delivering judgment, "that a woman who cannot keep her legs closed before marriage will never be faithful after. And now she parades her mistake in front of decent people, contaminating this sacred celebration. Enough." A voice cut through the chaos like thunder. The crowd parted, and Amara's heart stopped. He was tall, easily 6'3", with rich dark skin, a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Amara made in 6 months, and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His presence commanded instant silence. Even Mrs. Adebayo's mouth snapped shut. "Obinna Azikiwe," someone breathed. "The CEO of Azikiwe Industries." Amara knew that name. Everyone in Lagos knew that name. Azikiwe Industries owned half the commercial real estate in Nigeria, with operations across West Africa. This man could buy the hotel they stood in with his pocket change. But Amara didn't know him. She had never seen him before in her life. So why was he walking directly toward her? Obinna Azikiwe stopped 3 feet from Amara and Zuri, his expression unreadable. Then he did something that made the entire room gasp in collective shock. He knelt down to Zuri's level, his expensive suit touching the champagne-soaked floor, and smiled gently at the crying child. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "What's your name?" Zuri peeked at him through tear-filled eyes, her small voice trembling. "Zuri." "Zuri," Obinna repeated, as if tasting the name. "That's a beautiful name." "It means beautiful in Swahili," doesn't it? The little girl nodded slowly, fascinated despite her tears. Then Obinna stood, turning to face Mrs. Adebayo and the entire wedding party. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. This woman, he gestured to Amara without touching her, and this child are under my protection. Anyone who speaks ill of them answers to me. The silence was deafening. Mrs. Adebayo's face cycled through confusion, anger, and calculation. Mr. Azikiwe, with all due respect, you cannot possibly know what kind of woman. I know exactly what kind of woman she is, Obinna interrupted, his voice harder now. And I know exactly whose child Zuri is. He paused, letting the tension build, his eyes sweeping across the crowd before landing back on Amara's shocked face. She's mine. The room erupted in chaos. Amara's world tilted sideways. This was impossible. The father of her child had been a man named David, a charming accountant she'd met at university who disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. She'd never seen him again. She'd never even found out his last name. This billionaire CEO standing before her was definitely not David. Before she could speak, before she could protest this insane claim, Obinna's security team materialized from the crowd, forming a protective circle around her and Zuri. My car is outside, Obinna said quietly, still not meeting her eyes directly. You and your daughter will come with me. We have much to discuss. I don't understand, Amara finally found her voice, but it came out as a whisper. Trust me, he said, and for one impossible moment, his carefully controlled expression cracked, revealing something raw and urgent underneath. Please. Chioma pushed through the crowd, her wedding makeup streaked with tears. Amara, what's happening? But Amara couldn't answer. She couldn't think. Obinna Azikiwe, one of the most powerful men in Nigeria, had just claimed her daughter as his own in front of 200 people. And the terrifying truth was, she had no idea why. What would you do if your past was exposed in front of everyone? Hit like if you've ever been judged unfairly, and comment where you're watching from. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class glided through Lagos traffic like a shark through water, somehow finding paths where Amara saw only gridlock. Inside the leather interior, silence pressed down like a physical weight. Zuri had fallen asleep against Amara's side, exhausted from crying. Amara kept one arm wrapped protectively around her daughter while her other hand gripped the door handle, ready to bolt at the first opportunity. Obinna sat across from them in the spacious back seat, his long legs crossed, his expression thoughtful but unreadable. He hadn't spoken since they'd left the hotel 10 minutes ago. Where are you taking us? Amara finally demanded, her voice low but fierce. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder. Survival instinct. Somewhere safe, Obinna replied calmly. Somewhere you can rest while we talk. We're not going anywhere until you explain what just happened. Amara's grip on Zuri tightened. You stood up in that wedding and claimed my daughter. You lied to all those people. Why? For the first time, Obinna's composure cracked slightly. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and when he looked at her, there was pain in his eyes that surprised her. I didn't lie, he said quietly. Yes, you did. Amara's voice rose, and she forced it back down, mindful of Zuri. Zuri's father was a man named David Okonkwo. He was an accountant. We met at University of Lagos in 2019. When I told him I was pregnant, he vanished. I never saw him again. David Okonkwo, Obinna repeated slowly, as if the name tasted bitter. Average height, light skin, always wore designer knockoffs. Had a silver tongue and empty promises. Amara's breath caught. How do you? Because David Okonkwo doesn't exist, Obinna said flatly. It's an alias. One of many that my younger brother Chukwudi used when he wanted to escape his responsibilities. The world seemed to tilt again. Your brother. Obinna nodded grimly. Chukwudi has always been what our mother calls troubled. What I call selfish and cruel. He attended the University of Lagos for 1 year before I pulled him out when I discovered he was gambling away his tuition. But apparently, during that year, he met you. He pulled out his phone, swiped through it, then turned the screen toward her. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. The photo showed a young man, clearly several years younger than the version she'd known, but it was unmistakably David. Same charming smile. Same dimple in his left cheek. Except in this photo, he stood next to Obinna at what looked like a family gathering, wearing traditional Igbo attire. The caption read, Chukwudi's 20th birthday, 2019. That's him, Amara whispered. But his name, he said his name was David Okafor. He's used at least 6 different names that I know of, Obinna said wearily, taking the phone back. Each time he wants to seduce a woman or con someone out of money. David Okafor. Emmanuel Nwosu. Michael Adeyemi. He's very good at becoming whoever he needs to be. Amara felt sick. 5 years of believing she'd fallen for a real person, someone who'd simply gotten scared and run away. But it had all been a lie. A performance. She'd been nothing but a mark. Why didn't you find me? The question burst out before she could stop it. If you knew your brother was doing this, why didn't you track down his victims? Obinna's jaw tightened. I didn't know about you. I only discovered what Chukwudi had done 3 months ago when he got drunk and bragged about his conquest to our cousin. He mentioned a girl from his University of Lagos days who'd probably gotten pregnant. He laughed about it. The disgust in Obinna's voice was palpable. My cousin told me. I've spent the last 3 months trying to find you. I hired private investigators. I searched through old university records. I interviewed Chukwudi's former classmates. And then today, I was attending my business partner's son's wedding when I saw you standing in that room, and I saw Zuri. His voice trailed off as he looked at the sleeping child. For a moment, his entire demeanor softened. She has his nose. My family's nose. And when she looked at me, I saw my mother's eyes. He cleared his throat, the professional mask slipping back into place. I knew immediately. And when that woman started attacking you, I couldn't stand by. Amara's mind reeled. So you just claimed her? Claimed us? I protected you, Obinna corrected. There's a difference. By lying. By telling a partial truth, he countered. Zuri is my blood. That makes her my responsibility. That makes her mine in every way that matters, even if I'm not the one who. He stopped abruptly, looking away. The car pulled through an enormous gate, and Amara realized they were entering a private estate in Ikoyi, one of Lagos's wealthiest neighborhoods. The mansion before them was stunning, modern architecture with traditional Nigerian artistic elements, surrounded by manicured gardens and water features. Welcome home, Obinna said softly. This isn't my home. Amara protested even as the car stopped and a uniformed staff member opened her door. It is now. Obinna stepped out and gestured for her to follow. At least temporarily. You can't go back to your apartment in Mushin, not after what happened at the wedding. By tomorrow morning, your face will be all over social media. Mrs. Adebayo has a large following, and she's not known for her discretion. The truth of his words hit her like cold water. Her life had just been publicly destroyed. Again. Inside the mansion, Amara walked through spaces larger than her entire apartment building, her cheap shoes squeaking on imported marble. Staff members bowed their heads respectfully as they passed. Zuri woke up, eyes wide with wonder at the crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows. Mama, is this a palace? She whispered. Something like that, baby. Obinna led them to a guest suite on the second floor, a series of rooms decorated in warm earth tones with a king-size bed, a private bathroom that could fit 10 people, and a children's room attached. You'll stay here, he announced. My housekeeper, Mrs. Nkechi, will bring clothes for both of you. Tomorrow, we discuss the details. What details? Amara demanded, setting Zuri down to explore the children's room. I don't understand what you want from us. Obinna turned to face her fully for the first time since they'd entered the car. Up close, she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried in his shoulders. What I want, he said carefully, is to give my niece the life she deserves. The life my brother's selfishness stole from her. We don't need your charity. It's not charity. It's family obligation. His voice hardened slightly. Amara, you were working 3 jobs to survive in a one-room apartment in one of Lagos's most dangerous neighborhoods. You're 27 years old and you look 35 because you're killing yourself to raise a child alone. Don't stand there and tell me you don't need help. The words stung because they were true. Amara had looked at herself in the mirror that morning and barely recognized the exhausted woman staring back. The girl who dreamed of becoming a nurse had disappeared, replaced by someone who just tried to survive each day. What's the catch? She asked quietly. Men like you don't help without expecting something in return. Obinna's expression flickered with something that might have been hurt, but it passed quickly. The catch, he said slowly, is that I need you to trust me. Just for a little while. Let me provide for you and Zuri. Let me give her opportunities, good schools, healthcare, stability. And in return. He hesitated, and Amara's suspicion flared. In return, she prompted coldly. In return, you let me be her uncle. Publicly. Let me acknowledge her as my family. He ran a hand over his face. My mother is dying. Cancer. She has perhaps 6 months left. She's always wanted grandchildren, but I'm not married and Chukwudi is. Chukwudi. If she knew that she had a grandchild, even from my worthless brother, it would bring her joy in her final days. Amara's anger faltered. She thought of her own mother, who had disowned her but whom she still loved desperately. You want to use my daughter to make your dying mother happy. I want to give my mother peace before she dies, Obinna corrected gently. And I want to give Zuri everything she should have had from the beginning. Those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Before Amara could respond, her phone buzzed. Then again. And again. She pulled it out and felt her blood run cold. 17 missed calls from unknown numbers. Her social media was exploding with notifications. And her WhatsApp was filled with messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. One message from a former coworker made her stomach drop. Girl, you're all over Twitter. They are calling you a gold digger who trapped a billionaire's brother. Hashtag Lagos wedding drama is trending. She looked up at Obinna, her face pale. What have you done? His expression was grim but unapologetic. I've given you a chance at a different life. The question is, are you brave enough to take it? Outside the window, the Lagos night glittered with millions of lights. Somewhere out there, her old life was burning to ashes on social media. Her name was being dragged through the mud by strangers who knew nothing about her struggle, her pain, her love for her daughter. She had no home to return to. No family that wanted her. No job that would keep her once they saw the videos from the wedding. She had only this, a stranger's offer in a mansion that felt like a dream. Or a trap. What do you think happens next? Comment below. 3 days in Obinna's mansion felt like living in a fever dream. Amara woke in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, ate meals prepared by a professional chef, and watched Zuri play in a garden larger than the entire compound she'd grown up in. But freedom felt like a gilded cage when you couldn't leave. The internet had been merciless. Hashtag Lagos wedding drama had trended for 2 days straight. There were think pieces about her on blogs, TikTok videos dissecting her clothes and hair, Twitter threads speculating about her motives. One particularly viral post called her, "the poor girl who got lucky," with a photo of her tear-stained face from the wedding. Obinna's PR team had released a carefully worded statement confirming that Zuri was a member of the Azikiwe family and that Amara was under the family's protection. They threatened legal action against anyone spreading false information, which had somewhat calmed the storm. But the damage was done. On Thursday morning, Mrs. Nkechi, the motherly housekeeper, knocked on Amara's door with an unusual expression, sympathy mixed with worry. "Oga Obinna says you must come downstairs," she said in Yoruba-accented English. "The family has arrived." Amara's stomach dropped. "Family?" His mother and brother, Mrs. Nkechi confirmed, then added quietly, "Be strong, my dear. You will need it." Downstairs, Amara found herself in a formal sitting room she hadn't entered before. It was decorated with traditional Igbo art, wooden sculptures, bronze leopards, and colorful paintings depicting village life. The furniture was antique, probably worth more than everything Amara had ever owned combined. Obinna stood by the window, his posture tense. He wore traditional attire today, a white senator shirt with intricate embroidery and matching trousers. When he saw Amara, he nodded grimly. "There in the main lounge," he said. "Are you ready?" "No," Amara admitted. She dressed in one of the simple but elegant dresses Mrs. Nkechi had provided, a navy blue Ankara print that felt foreign on her body. "Where's Zuri?" "Mrs. Nkechi is keeping her upstairs. I thought it best that we speak with them first." He led her through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate, and Amara realized that was exactly their purpose. This was a house built by wealth that stretched back generations. She was about to meet people who lived in a different world. The main lounge was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pool, leather furniture that whispered money, and traditional kola nut bowls on the coffee table, a sign of Igbo hospitality. But there was nothing hospitable about the two people waiting inside. The woman sitting regally in the wingback chair was clearly Obinna's mother. She had his bone structure, his intelligent eyes, but where his expression was controlled, hers was imperious. Even weakened by illness, her head wrapped in a colorful gele, her body thin under an expensive wrapper, she radiated authority. This was a woman used to being obeyed. Beside her, lounging on the sofa with insolent casualness, was a young man Amara recognized with a jolt of pure fury. David. Or rather, Chukwudi. He was older than in the photo Obinna had shown her, his face fuller, his hairline slightly receded. But it was definitely him. The man who had sweet-talked his way into her heart, her bed, and then vanished like smoke when she'd needed him most. And he was smacking. "So," Chukwudi drawled, his eyes raking over Amara with casual cruelty, "this is the desperate one from 5 years ago. I barely remember her. She must not have been that memorable." Amara's hands clenched into fists. Every muscle in her body screamed to lunge at him, to claw that smug expression off his face. How dare he sit there and mock her? After what he'd done. "Chukwudi." Obinna's voice was ice. "You will show respect, or you will leave." "Respect." Chukwudi laughed. "For what? A gold digger who somehow tracked us down after." "I didn't track anyone down." Amara's voice exploded out of her. 5 years of pain and humiliation boiled over. "You lied to me. You told me your name was David Okafor. You said you loved me. You said we'd build a life together. And then you disappeared the moment I told you I was pregnant." Mrs. Azikiwe's voice was soft but cut through the room like a knife. "So my son is a liar and a coward. Tell me something I don't already know." Chukwudi's smack faltered. "Mama. Be silent." The old woman didn't raise her voice, but Chukwudi shrank back as if struck. She turned her sharp gaze to Amara, studying her with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen. "You. What is your full name?" "Amara Okonkwo, Ma." "Okonkwo. Igbo." a slight nod of approval. Your parents? My father was a secondary school teacher. My mother sold fabrics at Balegan Market. The past tense hurt. Were, not are. They'd made their choice. Was. Mrs. Azikiwe's eyebrow rose. They disowned me when I became pregnant. I haven't spoken to them in 5 years. Something flickered in the older woman's expression, sympathy, perhaps, or recognition. Shame is a powerful weapon in our culture, often wielded by those who have never had to face it themselves. Amara hadn't expected understanding from this woman. It disarmed her. Mama, Obinna interjected gently, Amara has been raising Zuri alone for 5 years. She's worked multiple jobs, lived in difficult conditions, but she's kept her daughter healthy and happy. She's a good mother. Of course she is, Mrs. Azikiwe said. If she wasn't, my foolish son would have mentioned it by now. He's always had a savior complex. But there was fondness in her voice when she looked at Obinna. So, where is this child? My grandchild. I want to see her. Mama, perhaps we should discuss, Obinna began, but his mother waved a dismissive hand. I'm dying, Obinna. I don't have time for bureaucracy. Bring me the child. 10 minutes later, Mrs. Nkechi brought Zuri downstairs. The little girl was shy at first, hiding behind Amara's legs, but when Mrs. Azikiwe smiled, a genuine, warm smile that transformed her entire face, Zuri's curiosity won out. Come here, small one, the old woman said softly in Igbo. Let me see you. Zuri approached cautiously. Mrs. Azikiwe studied her with tears forming in her eyes. You have your grandfather's nose, she whispered, touching Zuri's face gently. My late husband's nose. And my eyes. Oh, you are definitely an Azikiwe. Watching this powerful woman cry over her daughter, Amara felt something crack inside her chest. For 5 years, she'd believed Zuri would never know her father's family, never have grandparents or uncles or the web of connection that family provided. She'd mourned that loss silently while telling herself they were better off alone. But here was a grandmother meeting her grandchild for the first time, and the joy on the dying woman's face was undeniable. What's your name? Mrs. Azikiwe asked Zuri. Zuri Okonkwo, the little girl replied dutifully. Zuri Azikiwe Okonkwo, Mrs. Azikiwe corrected firmly. You are both now. You belong to both families, do you understand? Zuri nodded, though she clearly didn't understand at all. Chukwudi had been silent throughout this exchange, but now he stood abruptly. So that's it. We are just accepting this. She could be anyone's child, Mama. You're taking the word of some. DNA test results came back this morning, Obinna interrupted, pulling a folder from the side table. 99.9% certainty that Zuri is biologically related to our family. Specifically, to you, Chukwudi. Stop embarrassing yourself. Amara's head snapped toward Obinna. You tested her. When? The first night, he admitted. While you were both asleep. My doctor came to the house. Fury flooded through Amara. You had no right. I had every right to verify before making promises to my mother, Obinna said calmly, though his eyes apologized. Would you have preferred I asked your permission and then discovered it was all a mistake? Better to be certain. Amara wanted to argue, but she couldn't. In his position, she might have done the same thing. Chukwudi snatched the folder and scanned the results, his face darkening. When he looked up, the Playboy mask had slipped, revealing something uglier underneath. Fine, he spat. So I fathered a child with some nobody. So what? That doesn't mean I owe her anything. I never wanted kids. I certainly never wanted her. He pointed at Amara with disgust. You were a fun distraction, nothing more. If you'd been smart, you would have taken care of the problem. The room went silent. Amara didn't think. Her hand flew out and connected with Chukwudi's face in a slap that echoed through the lounge like a gunshot. Chukwudi staggered back, hand on his reddening cheek, shock and rage warring on his face. "You bitch. You will not," Mrs. Azikiwe's voice was deadly quiet, "disrespect the mother of your child in my presence. You will not speak of abortion as if it were a solution to your irresponsibility. And you will certainly not blame her for your cowardice." She stood, despite her obvious pain, and faced her younger son with disappointment carved into every line of her face. "I have made excuses for you your entire life. I have bailed you out of debts, covered up your scandals, hoped you would mature. But this..." She gestured to Zuri, who was now crying in Amara's arms. "This is unforgivable. This child exists because of your selfishness, and she has suffered because of your abandonment. Mama, I was 22. Your father was 20 when I became pregnant with Obinna," Mrs. Azikiwe cut him off. "He married me the next month. He worked 3 jobs while finishing university. He built this empire from nothing because he understood responsibility. You are 30 now, and you have built nothing. You are nothing." Chukwudi's face crumpled. For a moment, Amara almost felt sorry for him. "Almost. Get out of my house," Mrs. Azikiwe continued. "You will have no claim on this child or her mother. You will tell no one what you know about them. And if I hear you have bothered them in any way, I will personally ensure you inherit nothing from this family. Do you understand?" Chukwudi's mouth opened and closed. Then, without another word, he stormed out. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Mrs. Azikiwe swayed, and Obinna rushed to support her. "Mama, please sit." "I'm fine," she said, but allowed him to help her back to the chair. She looked at Amara with exhausted eyes. "I apologize for my son. Both of them, in different ways. One is a fool. The other is too noble for his own good." "Mama," Obinna protested. "It's true. You've taken on your brother's responsibility as if it were your own." She turned to Amara. "My son Obinna has proposed something to me. A formal arrangement where Zuri is recognized as an Azikiwe heir, with all the privileges and protections that entails. Where you are provided for as the mother of an Azikiwe child. It would mean trust, education funds, security. But it would also mean..." She paused, and Amara felt dread building. "It would also mean what, Ma?" Mrs. Azikiwe and Obinna exchanged a long look. Finally, Obinna spoke. "It would mean marriage," he said quietly. "Between us. A marriage of convenience, but legal and binding. It's the only way to fully legitimize Zuri in the eyes of our community and protect you both from social backlash." Amara felt the room spin. "You want me to marry you?" "I want to give you and Zuri protection," Obinna clarified. "The Azikiwe name. My resources. A family. But not love," Amara said flatly. "No," Obinna agreed, and something in his honesty hurt more than she expected. "Not love. Just partnership. For Zuri's sake." Before Amara could respond, Mrs. Nkechi burst into the room, her face pale with fear. "Oga. Madam. There are journalists at the gate. Many of them. And there are also people from the girl's family. They say they want to see their daughter." Amara's blood ran cold. "Her family. Here." Mrs. Azikiwe's eyes narrowed. "It seems word has spread quickly. Tell me, Amara, are you ready to face them? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves emotional drama. What do you think happens next? Comment below." The journalist had multiplied like locusts. Through the mansion's security cameras, Amara could see at least 20 reporters crowding the gate, cameras and microphones ready, hungry for the story of the poor girl who trapped a billionaire family. But it was the second group that made her hands shake, her family. Her father stood at the front, still wearing his shabby teaching clothes, threadbare trousers and a faded shirt that had seen too many washings. Beside him, her mother clutched her handbag like a shield, her church clothes incongruous against the wealth of Ikoyi. And behind them, her younger brother Emeka, now 24, his face hard with an expression Amara remembered too well, judgment. "They disowned you," Obinna said quietly, standing beside her in his security room. Multiple screens showed different angles of the chaos outside. "You owe them nothing. They are still my family," Amara whispered, though the words felt hollow. These people had thrown her out pregnant and penniless. They'd never once checked if she was alive or dead. And now, because money and status were suddenly involved, they wanted back in. "Do you want to see them?" Obinna asked. Amara thought of Zuri upstairs, still shaken from the confrontation with Chukwudi. She thought of 5 years of struggling alone, of nights she'd cried herself to sleep wondering if her mother ever thought about her, ever regretted her choice. "Yes," she said finally. "But not out there. Bring them inside. Away from the cameras." Obinna nodded and spoke into his security com, "Let the Okonkwo family through. Take them to the green sitting room. No journalist. Anyone who tries to follow gets arrested for trespassing." 15 minutes later, Amara walked into the green sitting room, a smaller, less formal space than where they'd met with Mrs. Azikiwe. Obinna had offered to accompany her, but she'd refused. This conversation needed to happen alone. Her parents looked small in the expensive room. Her mother's eyes were red from crying, her father's face was ashen with shock, and Emeka stood apart, his arms crossed defensively. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Amara, her mother finally broke the silence, her Igbo accent thick with emotion. "My daughter." "Don't call me that," Amara said coldly. "You made it clear 5 years ago that I was no longer your daughter." Her mother flinched as if struck. "We were angry. We were ashamed. You must understand." "I understand perfectly," Amara interrupted. "I understand that when I needed you most." "Continue." "You chose your reputation over your child." "I understand that you threw me into the streets with nothing." "I understand that you never once tried to find out if Zuri and I were alive or dead." "We thought you would come back," her father said, his voice rough. "We thought you would realize your mistake and come home repentant." Amara laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even her. "My mistake. My mistake was trusting a man who lied to me. My mistake was believing that my family would stand by me when things got hard. But Zuri..." Her voice rose. "Zuri was never a mistake. She is the best thing that ever happened to me." "We didn't know," her mother whispered. "We didn't know you were struggling so much. If we had known." "You didn't want to know," Amara corrected. "You could have found me anytime. Lagos is big, but not that big. You chose not to look." Emeka spoke for the first time, his voice dripping with contempt. "So now you're living in a mansion, wearing expensive clothes, and suddenly you're too good for us. You really did trap a rich man, didn't you?" The accusation stung because Amara had feared the same thing herself. Was she using Obinna? Was she a gold digger after all? But then she remembered Zuri's face when Mrs. Azikiwe had called her an Azikiwe. She remembered the DNA results that proved Zuri belonged to this family by blood. She remembered 5 years of fighting alone. "I didn't trap anyone," Amara said steadily. "Zuri's biological father is Chukwudi Azikiwe. He lied to me about his identity, used me, and abandoned us. His family found us and offered to help. That's the truth, whether you believe it or not." Her father's expression shifted from shock to calculation. The Azikiwe family. The billionaires. And there it was. The real reason they'd come. "How much are they paying you?" her father continued, leaning forward. "There must be some arrangement. Some settlement." Amara's stomach turned. You came here to ask for money. We are still your family, her mother protested. Whatever you receive should be shared. That's how family works. We raised you, fed you, paid for your education. Until the moment I became inconvenient, Amara finished. Then you threw me away like garbage. We were protecting our reputation, her father shouted, his face reddening. Do you know what people said about us? About our family? The shame we endured. The shame you endured. Amara's voice was deadly quiet now. I was 22 years old, pregnant, and homeless. I slept in a church bathroom for 3 weeks because I had nowhere else to go. I sold everything I owned for food money. I went into labor alone in a government hospital where the nurses called me names because I had no husband. Don't you dare talk to me about shame. Her mother was crying now, but Amara felt nothing. The tears that might have moved her 5 years ago meant nothing now. We want to be part of Zuri's life, her mother sobbed. We want to meet our granddaughter. We want to make things right. Make things right. Amara repeated slowly. You want to suddenly be grandparents now that there's money involved. Now that she has the Azikiwe name. It's not about the money, Emeka started, but even he couldn't finish the lie convincingly. The door opened, and Obinna entered quietly. He must have been listening. His presence immediately changed the energy in the room. Her family straightened, her father's eyes widened with recognition, her mother wiped her tears hastily. Mr. Azikiwe, her father said quickly, standing. Thank you for taking care of our daughter. We are so grateful. Are you? Obinna's voice was polite but cold. Because from what I've heard, you haven't cared about your daughter's well-being in 5 years. That's not true, her father protested. We've always cared. We had to maintain our position in the community. You understand, as a businessman. I understand that you put your pride before your child's survival, Obinna cut him off. I understand that while your daughter was working 3 jobs and living in a dangerous neighborhood, you were comfortable in your home, telling yourselves that she deserved her suffering. You don't know what it's like, her mother said desperately. The gossip, the judgment. People stopped coming to our church. My business lost customers. Your father almost lost his job. We were destroyed by the scandal. Yet you survived, Obinna observed. While Amara and Zuri barely did. Emeka stepped forward, his jaw set stubbornly. So what now? You're going to keep our sister locked away in your mansion like some kind of prisoner. Turn her against us. I don't need to turn her against you, Obinna said simply. You did that yourselves. We have rights, her father insisted. We are her family. We are Zuri's grandparents. The law, Obinna interrupted, his voice turning to steel, gives you nothing. You abandon them. You have no legal standing. And if you attempt to cause problems for Amara or Zuri, you discover exactly how expensive legal battles can be. I have 17 lawyers on retainer. How many do you have? The threat hung in the air like smoke. Her father deflated, the calculation in his eyes shifting to fear. This was a battle he couldn't win. However, Obinna continued, and everyone looked up in surprise. Amara will make the final decision about your involvement in Zuri's life. If she wants you to have a relationship with your granddaughter, I won't prevent it. But understand this, any access you have is a privilege she grants, not a right you possess. And it can be revoked at any time. He turned to Amara, his expression softening slightly. What do you want? Amara looked at her family, these people who'd shaped her childhood, who'd abandoned her when she needed them, who now came crawling back because money was involved. Part of her wanted revenge. Wanted to slam the door in their faces the way they'd slammed it in hers. But another part, the part that remembered her mother braiding her hair before school, her father helping with homework, Emeka playing with her as children, that part still ached. I want the truth, Amara said finally. Tell me the real reason you're here. If you lie, you'll never see us again. Her parents exchanged glances. Finally, her father spoke, his voice heavy with shame. We're in debt, he admitted. Serious debt. After you left, people did stop coming to the church. Your mother's fabric business collapsed. I had to take loans to keep us afloat. The interest has been crushing us. When we saw the news about you and the Azikiwe family, we thought. He couldn't finish. You thought you could use me, Amara completed. Again. We are desperate, her mother whispered. The bank is threatening to take our house. We have nowhere else to turn. Amara felt something crack inside her chest, not sympathy exactly, but recognition. She understood desperation. She'd lived it for 5 years. How much? She asked quietly. 3 million naira, her father said, and Amara's breath caught. That was nearly $7,000, a fortune to her family, nothing to the Azikiwe household. Obinna pulled out his phone without hesitation. I can transfer it now. No, Amara said sharply, and everyone looked at her in surprise. If this happens, it happens on my terms. She turned to her parents, her voice steady despite the emotion churning inside her. I will ask Obinna to pay your debt. But in return, you will sign a legal document stating that you will never publicly claim credit for Zuri or me. You will never use our connection to the Azikiwe family for your own benefit. And you will respect my boundaries. If I say you can see Zuri, you can see her. If I say no, you accept it without argument. Amara, you can't be serious, Emeka started. Those are my terms, Amara said firmly. Take them or leave them. Her parents looked at each other. Pride warred with need on their faces. Finally, her mother nodded. We accept. Good, Obinna said, already typing. My lawyers will have the documents ready tomorrow. Once signed, the money will be transferred. As her family left, subdued now, their scheming thwarted but their crisis solved, Amara sank into a chair, exhausted. You're too generous, Obinna observed, sitting across from her. They don't deserve your mercy. It's not mercy, Amara said. It's closure. They came here because they needed something from me. Now they'll have it, and they'll have no excuse to ever ask again. I'm buying my freedom from them. Obinna studied her with something like admiration. You're stronger than you look. I've had to be. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Through the window, Amara could see the city sprawling endlessly, millions of lives, millions of stories, most of them harder than they needed to be. About the proposal, Obinna said carefully. The marriage arrangement. You haven't given me an answer. Amara had been avoiding thinking about it. Marriage to a man she barely knew, for the sake of legitimacy and protection. It sounded insane. It was insane. But was it more insane than the life she'd been living? More insane than raising Zuri alone in a one-room apartment with no support and no future? I need guarantees, she said finally. If I agree to this, I need to know exactly what it means. For me and for Zuri. Name your terms. Zuri's education and healthcare, fully funded. No matter what happens between us. Done. A separate income for me. I won't be dependent on you for every naira I spend. Agreed. I'll set up a monthly allowance and a savings account in your name. If the marriage ends, I keep custody of Zuri. No fights, no lawyers trying to take her from me. Obinna hesitated for the first time. Zuri is my blood niece. I can't promise to never see her. Seeing her and taking her from me are different things, Amara clarified. Promise me you won't try to take custody if we divorce. I promise, Obinna said solemnly. You're her mother. That bond is sacred. And finally, Amara took a deep breath. This is a business arrangement. I won't share your bed. We'll have separate rooms. Something flickered in Obinna's expression, relief or disappointment, Amara couldn't tell. Agreed. Then yes, Amara said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. I'll marry you. Obinna nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting a different answer and was adjusting his plans. We'll need to move quickly. The press is already speculating. A wedding within the month would silence the rumors and legitimize everything before my mother's health declines further. A month. Amara was going to marry a billionaire in a month. Her phone buzzed. A message from Chioma, her best friend, the one whose wedding had started this entire chain of events. Girl, I'm so sorry about what happened. But I just saw your family leave your mansion on Instagram Live. Someone was recording. Are you okay? Call me. Amara showed the message to Obinna, who sighed heavily. Privacy in Lagos is a myth. We'll need to address this publicly soon. Before either could respond, Mrs. Nkechi rushed in again, her face pale. Oga, there's a problem. A big problem. What now? Obinna asked wearily. Your brother Chukwudi. He just posted on social media. Mrs. Nkechi held out her phone, and Amara's blood ran cold. On the screen was a video of Chukwudi, clearly drunk, ranting to the camera. Everyone wants to know the truth about the Azikiwe family drama. Here's the truth, that girl Amara. She's a scam artist. She probably has 5 baby daddies and chose to trap my family because we have money. And my perfect brother Obinna. He's so desperate for a family he'll believe anything. Well, I'm not going to let some gold digger destroy everything my family built. Tomorrow, I'm holding a press conference. I'm going to expose everything. The video had already been viewed 50,000 times. Amara felt the floor drop out from under her. Just when she thought things were stabilizing, Chukwudi was about to burn it all down. What do we do? She whispered. Obinna's jaw was tight, his eyes hard. We beat him to it. Tomorrow morning, we hold our own press conference. We tell our story first, on our terms. But he'll say I'm lying. Let him, Obinna said coldly. We have DNA results. We have investigators' reports documenting his aliases. We have witness statements from his university days. He can rant all he wants, but facts are facts. He stood, pulling out his phone. I'll call my PR team. We'll prepare a statement tonight. Tomorrow, we face this together. As he left to make calls, Amara sat alone in the darkening room, her mind reeling. In less than a week, her entire life had been destroyed and rebuilt. She'd confronted her past, her family, and the father of her child. She'd agreed to marry a stranger for her daughter's future. And now she was about to face the entire country, with a vengeful man determined to destroy her credibility. Upstairs, she could hear Zuri laughing, a pure, innocent sound that reminded her why any of this mattered. Whatever came tomorrow, whatever Chukwudi said, whatever the press wrote, she would endure it. For Zuri, she'd survived worse. The press conference room at the Azikiwe Industries headquarters in Victoria Island could seat 300 people. By 9 a.m., it was packed with 400, journalists standing against the walls, cameras positioned at every angle, the air thick with anticipation and the smell of ambition. Amara stood in the green room backstage, her hands trembling despite the expensive navy suit Obinna's stylist had chosen for her. Through the monitor, she could see the crowd gathering, the speculation building. Several news stations were carrying it live. You don't have to do this, Obinna said quietly. He looked impeccable in a charcoal suit, his expression calm, but Amara had learned to read the tension in his shoulders. He was as nervous as she was. Yes, I do, Amara replied. If I hide, they'll believe Chukwudi's lies. I have to face them. Mrs. Azikiwe sat in a wheelchair nearby, insisting on being present despite her doctor's protest. She dressed in traditional Igbo attire, a stunning royal blue wrapper and blouse with an elaborate gele that added inches to her height even while seated. She looked like the matriarch she was. "Remember," the old woman said, her voice weak but firm, "you are telling the truth. Truth needs no embellishment, no performance. Simply speak from your heart." A production assistant knocked. 2 minutes, Mr. Azikiwe. Obinna nodded, then turned to Amara. "I'll go first. Establish the facts. Then I'll introduce you. Just answer their questions honestly. My security team will remove anyone who gets aggressive." "What about Chukwudi? His press conference is scheduled for noon. By then, we'll have controlled the narrative." Obinna's expression hardened. "He's already lost. He just doesn't know it yet." They walked out together, and the camera flashes were blinding. Questions shouted from every direction. "Mr. Azikiwe, is it true you're marrying your brother's baby mama? Miss Okonkwo, how much is the Azikiwe family paying you? Is this a publicity stunt?" Obinna raised his hand, and the room gradually quieted. He had that affect, a natural authority that commanded respect even from hungry journalists. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice clear and measured. "I'm going to make a statement, after which Miss Okonkwo and I will take questions. Please hold all inquiries until then." He paused, letting the silence settle. Every phone was recording, every notepad ready. 5 years ago, my younger brother Chukwudi Azikiwe, using the false name David Okafor, had a relationship with Miss Amara Okonkwo while they were both students at the University of Lagos. When Miss Okonkwo became pregnant, my brother abandoned her without explanation. She did not know his real identity. She did not know he came from wealth. She struggled alone to raise their daughter, my niece Zuri, for 5 years. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the story they'd been expecting. 3 months ago, I learned about Zuri's existence when my brother mentioned her while intoxicated. I spent the following month searching for Miss Okonkwo to offer my family support. Last week, I found her at a wedding in Lagos. What followed was a series of unfortunate public events that have been mischaracterized in the media. He gestured to the screen behind him, and a document appeared, the DNA test results, enlarged for everyone to see. These are certified DNA results from Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, confirming that Zuri Okonkwo is biologically related to the Azikiwe family, specifically as the daughter of Chukwudi Azikiwe. These results have been independently verified. Another document appeared, a police report. This is an investigation report documenting my brother's pattern of using false identities to deceive women. There are at least 4 other documented cases. Miss Okonkwo is a victim, not a perpetrator. The journalists were scribbling frantically now, the narrative they'd planned to write crumbling. My family has acknowledged Zuri as an Azikiwe heir. She and her mother are under our protection. And yes, to address the speculation directly, I have proposed marriage to Miss Okonkwo. Not because she is extorting us, not because this is a scheme, but because it is the right thing to do. Zuri deserves the legitimacy and security that a proper family structure provides. He turned to Amara, extending his hand. "Miss Okonkwo, if you please." Amara stood on shaking legs and walked to the podium. The camera swiveled toward her like predators tracking prey. She gripped the edges of the podium to steady herself. "I never wanted this attention," she began, her voice quieter than Obinna's but carrying clearly through the microphones. "I never asked to be part of this family. All I wanted was to raise my daughter in peace." She took a breath, remembering Mrs. Azikiwe's advice. Truth needs no performance. When I was 22, I fell in love with a man who said his name was David. He was charming, attentive, and he told me he wanted a future with me. When I discovered I was pregnant, I was scared but hopeful. I thought we would face it together. Her voice cracked slightly. Instead, he disappeared. Completely. I couldn't find him anywhere. His phone number didn't work. The address he'd given me didn't exist. It was like he'd never been real. The room was silent now, journalists leaning forward. My family disowned me. I had nowhere to go, no money, no support. I worked as a housemaid, a market stall assistant, anything I could find to feed myself and prepare for my baby. I gave birth alone in a government hospital. For 5 years, I raised Zuri by myself, and every day was a fight for survival. Amara looked directly at the cameras, thinking of all the women watching who knew exactly what she meant. I didn't know Zuri's father was rich. I didn't know he had a family that could help us. I only knew that he'd abandoned us, and I had to be strong enough for both of us. She gestured to Obinna. When Mr. Azikiwe found me and explained who he was, I didn't believe him. I thought it was another scam, another way for someone to use me. But he showed me proof. He showed me that the man I'd loved never existed, he was just a role Chukwudi was playing. Her hands clenched on the podium. The Azikiwe family didn't have to claim us. They didn't have to acknowledge Zuri. But they did, because Mrs. Azikiwe believes in family responsibility, and Obinna believes in doing what's right. They're offering us a chance at a better life, and yes, I'm taking it. Not because I'm a gold digger, but because I'm a mother who wants better for her child than what I can provide alone. Miss Okonkwo. A journalist called out. Why agree to marriage? Why not just accept child support? Because marriage provides legal protection, Amara answered honestly. It legitimizes Zuri completely in Nigerian society. Without it, she'll always be the bastard child. With it, she's a true Azikiwe. I won't let my daughter suffer for my past. But you don't love Mr. Azikiwe, another journalist shouted. Before Amara could answer, Obinna stepped forward. This is a practical arrangement between two people who respect each other. We are building a partnership for Zuri's benefit. Love can grow from respect. Many successful marriages in our culture have started with less. What about Chukwudi? Someone called. Does he have any rights to the child? Chukwudi Azikiwe, Obinna's voice went cold, abandoned his responsibilities. He has forfeited his rights through his actions. Miss Okonkwo and I will be Zuri's legal parents. Chukwudi will have no claim. Mr. Azikiwe, your brother is planning his own press conference today. He says he'll expose the truth. What do you say to that? I say he's welcome to try, Obinna replied calmly. We have nothing to hide. Everything I've said here is documented, verified, and true. If my brother wants to embarrass himself publicly, that's his choice. More questions came rapid fire, but Obinna's PR director stepped forward. That's all the time we have. Thank you for coming. As they left the stage, Amara felt dizzy with relief and residual terror. She'd done it. She'd faced them. But now came Chukwudi's turn. At noon, Chukwudi's press conference began at a much smaller venue, a rented hall in Ikeja. The crowd was smaller too, mostly tabloid reporters and bloggers. The legitimate press was already skeptical after Obinna's presentation. Amara watched on the monitor in Obinna's office, Mrs. Azikiwe beside her in the wheelchair, both women silent. Chukwudi looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit wrinkled, his hair uncombed. He was definitely still drunk or hungover. My brother wants to paint me as a villain, he slurred into the microphone. But I'm the real victim here. That woman, Amara, she knew exactly who I was. She targeted me deliberately, got pregnant on purpose to trap my family. A reporter interrupted, Mr. Azikiwe, your brother presented DNA evidence and documentation of your use of false identities. How do you respond? Lies. Chukwudi shouted. All lies. The DNA was probably faked. Obinna would do anything to make me look bad because he's always been jealous of me. He's the responsible one, the perfect son, and I'm the screw-up. This is his revenge. Another reporter: Sir, we have police reports documenting your aliases. 4 other women have come forward with similar stories. Are they all lying? Chukwudi's face went red. Those women are there. Look, I might have used different names sometimes, but that's not illegal. And it doesn't prove anything about this Amara girl. So you admit to using false identities to deceive women? I admit nothing. Chukwudi was shouting now, unraveling. This whole thing is a setup. Amara probably isn't even the mother. That kid could be anyone's. The DNA. DNA can be faked. The press conference descended into chaos, with Chukwudi ranting incoherently while reporters peppered him with questions he couldn't answer. Within 20 minutes, even the tabloid journalists were leaving, convinced they were watching a man self-destruct rather than reveal any truth. In Obinna's office, Mrs. Azikiwe turned off the monitor with a tired sigh. He was always my difficult child, she said softly. Even as a baby, always fighting, always angry at the world. I thought love would fix him. But some people don't want to be fixed. Mama, don't blame yourself, Obinna said gently. I don't blame myself for his choices, Mrs. Azikiwe clarified. But I do regret enabling him for so long. If I'd been harder on him years ago, perhaps he wouldn't be this broken now. She looked at Amara with ancient eyes. You were right to keep Zuri from him. Whatever flaws that child has, she doesn't need Chukwudi's poison in her life. Amara's phone exploded with notifications. Social media was already trending in their favor. Hashtag Chukwudi exposed, man has public meltdown trying to deny documented evidence. Hashtag Team Amara, single mother stands up to billionaire family's black sheep. Obinna Azikiwe proving real men take responsibility even for others' mistakes. The narrative had shifted. Chukwudi had destroyed himself, and Amara had emerged not as a gold digger but as a sympathetic figure, a young woman wronged, fighting to survive, finally getting justice. It's over, Obinna said, reading the same feeds. The public believes us. Chukwudi has no credibility left. But even as relief flooded through Amara, her phone rang with an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Amara. The voice was female, cultured, and completely unfamiliar. You don't know me, but my name is Ngozi. I need to warn you about something. Who is this? I was engaged to Obinna Azikiwe 3 years ago, the woman continued. The wedding was planned, invitation sent. Then he called it off 2 weeks before the ceremony. Do you know why? Amara's stomach dropped. Why are you calling me? Because you're about to make the same mistake I did, Ngozi said. You're about to marry a man who will never love you. A man whose heart belongs to someone else. Someone he can never have. That's ridiculous. Is it? Ngozi laughed bitterly. Ask him, then. Ask Obinna about Adis. Ask him why he's still in love with his dead best friend's wife. And ask yourself if you really want to be married to a man who will spend his entire life mourning someone else. The line went dead. Amara stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. In the background, Obinna was talking to his PR team, strategizing next steps. Mrs. Azikiwe was being helped back to her wheelchair by Mrs. Nkechi. Everyone was moving forward, confident the crisis was over. But Amara's mind was racing. Who was Adis? Why had Obinna's previous engagement failed? And why did this feel like a new storm was just beginning? Amara didn't ask about Adis that day. Or the next. Or the day after that. Instead, she threw herself into wedding preparations that felt surreal. Designers came to the mansion with fabric samples for traditional attire, also ebony in rich burgundy and gold for the traditional ceremony, a white gown for the church wedding. Mrs. Azikiwe insisted on 2 ceremonies, one traditional Igbo wedding to honor their heritage, one church service to satisfy society's expectations. "We do things properly in this family," the old woman declared from her wheelchair, her health visibly declining but her will iron strong. Zuri was delighted by all the attention. She loved the big house, the garden, Mrs. Nkechi's cooking, and especially the grandfather she'd never met, Mrs. Azikiwe's late husband, whose portrait hung in the main hall. She would stand in front of it for long moments, studying his face. "He looks like me," Zuri said one afternoon, pointing to the man's nose. "Mama, is he my grandfather?" "Yes, baby," Amara replied, her heart aching. "He's your grandfather. I wish he could meet me. I think he would have loved you very much." But through all of this, the dress fittings, the guest list, the menu planning, Ngozi's words echoed in Amara's mind, "A man whose heart belongs to someone else. Someone he can never have." She watched Obinna carefully. He was attentive, respectful, present for every decision. But there was a distance in his eyes, a part of himself he kept locked away. Sometimes she'd catch him staring out windows with an expression of such profound sadness that it made her chest hurt. Who was Adis? And why couldn't he have her? A week before the wedding, Chioma finally came to visit. Amara's best friend since secondary school had been giving her space, but the time for space was over. They sat in Amara's private sitting room, a space that still felt foreign despite living there for 3 weeks, while Zuri played in the garden under Mrs. Nkechi's watchful eye. "So," Chioma said without preamble, "you're really doing this? Marrying a man you don't love for money and protection? It's not about money, isn't it?" Chioma's voice was gentle but firm. She'd always been the only person who could challenge Amara without judgment. "I'm not saying you're wrong, sis. If someone had offered me this deal when I was struggling, I might have taken it too. But I need to know, are you doing this for Zuri, or are you doing this because you're terrified of being poor again?" The question hit like a slap. Amara opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Was she terrified? Yes. God, yes. The memory of hunger, of counting naira to decide between feeding Zuri or buying medicine, of sleeping with one eye open in their unsafe neighborhood, it haunted her. The idea of going back to that life made her physically ill. "Both," Amara admitted finally. "I'm doing it for both reasons." "Then be honest with yourself about that," Chioma advised. "Don't pretend this is some noble sacrifice. You're making a practical choice for survival. That's okay. But you need to understand what you're trading." "What am I trading?" "The possibility of real love," Chioma said simply. "Obinna seems like a good man. But is good enough?" Before Amara could answer, there was a knock at the door. Obinna stood there, looking uncertain, an expression she rarely saw on his carefully controlled face. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said. "But Amara, we need to talk. Privately." Chioma stood, giving Amara's hand a squeeze. "I'll go play with Zuri. Think about what I said." When they were alone, Obinna closed the door and sat across from Amara. For a long moment, he said nothing, just studied his hands. "Someone contacted you," he finally said. "Didn't they?" "My former fiancé." Amara's breath caught. "How did you know?" "Because Ngozi has been calling everyone connected to me for the past week. My business partners, my friends, even my mother's doctor. She's trying to sabotage the wedding." He looked up, his eyes weary. "What did she tell you?" "She said you're still in love with someone named Adis," Amara replied steadily. "She said that's why you broke off your engagement. She said I'm making a mistake." Obinna's face didn't change, but something in his eyes died a little. "And you've been carrying that around for a week? Wondering if it's true? Is it?" "Yes," he said simply, and Amara felt the word like a physical blow. "It's true." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Tell me about her, Amara said quietly. Obinna stood and walked to the window, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was distant, as if he were recounting someone else's story. Adiz was my best friend Emeka's wife. Yes, same name as your brother, it's a common name. He smiled bitterly. Emeka and I grew up together. We were closer than brothers. When he told me he'd met the woman he wanted to marry, I was happy for him. He paused, his hands gripping the window frame. Then I met her. Adiz is extraordinary. Beautiful, yes, but more than that. Intelligent. Kind. Funny in ways that caught you off guard. She lit up every room she entered. Amara's chest tightened with an emotion she didn't want to name. I fell in love with her the day I met her, Obinna continued flatly. But she was engaged to my best friend. So I buried it. I was the best man at their wedding. I gave a speech about true love and forever. And I meant every continue word, because they were perfect together. Emeka loved her the way she deserved to be loved. He turned to face Amara, and the pain in his eyes was raw. They were married for 2 years. Happy years. Then Emeka was diagnosed with leukemia. Stage 4. He fought for 8 months, but Obinna's voice cracked. He died in my arms at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. His last words to me were, "Take care of her. Promise me." Amara felt tears sliding down her cheeks, though she wasn't sure who she was crying for. After Emeka died, I kept my distance from Adiz. She was grieving, and I was trying to be respectful. But our families kept pushing us together. It makes sense, they said. Emeka would have wanted it. As if love were some inheritance I could claim. But you wanted to, Amara said softly. God help me, yes, Obinna admitted. I wanted to. A year after Emeka died, I told Adiz how I felt. I convinced myself that maybe enough time had passed. That maybe we could build something real from our grief. What did she say? She said she knew. She'd always known. Obinna laughed bitterly. She's perceptive like that. She told me she cared about me deeply, but she could never love me the way I wanted. Because when she looked at me, all she saw was Emeka. All she felt was loss. I reminded her too much of what she'd lost. He sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. So I started seeing Ngozi. She was beautiful, accomplished, from a good family. I thought if I tried hard enough, I could forget Adiz. I proposed. We planned a wedding. And 2 weeks before the ceremony, I saw Adiz at a mutual friend's party. She was laughing at something, and for one moment, just one moment, I forgot she wasn't mine. I forgot I was engaged to someone else. And you realized you couldn't go through with it, Amara finished. I realized I couldn't trap Ngozi in a marriage where she'd always be second, Obinna corrected. She deserved better. So I ended it. Paid for everything, apologized profusely, and accepted being the villain in her story. He looked at Amara directly now. Ngozi's not wrong. I am still in love with Adiz. I probably always will be. And you deserve to know that before you marry me. The room felt too small suddenly. Amara stood and walked to the window beside Obinna, looking out at the garden where Zuri was chasing butterflies. Where is Adiz now? She asked. London. She moved there 3 years ago for work. She's an architect. Last I heard, she's dating someone. An Englishman. She's happy. And you? Obinna searched for the word. I'm functional. I run my business. I take care of my family. I exist. Amara turned to face him. So why are you doing this? Why marry me when you're in love with someone else? Because I made a promise to my best friend to take care of people who need it, Obinna said quietly. Because my mother is dying and wants to see me settled. Because Zuri deserves better than what life has given her. And because maybe if I focus on building something good for you and Zuri, I can stop dwelling on what I can't have. That's not fair to any of us. No, he agreed. It's not. Which is why I'm giving you a choice, Amara. If you want to walk away from this arrangement, I'll still support you and Zuri financially. I'll still make sure she's recognized as an Azikiwe. But you won't have to marry me. You won't have to tie yourself to a man who can't give you his whole heart. Amara studied his face, this man who'd been nothing but honest with her, even when the truth made him look weak. He could have hidden this. Could have married her and kept his secrets. But he'd chosen transparency instead. Do you think you could ever love me? She asked. Not the way you love Adis. But in some way that's real. Obinna considered the question seriously. I don't know. I think I could care for you deeply. Respect you. Build a life with you. But romantic love. He shook his head. I honestly don't know if I'm capable of that anymore. What if I said I wanted more than respect? That I wanted to be someone's first choice, not their consolation prize. Then I would say you deserve exactly that, Obinna replied. And I would step back. Amara turned back to the window. Zuri had found a flower and was bringing it to Mrs. Nkechi with that excited hop skip she did when she was happy. Her daughter was thriving here. She had food, safety, attention, love from Mrs. Azikiwe. She had a future that seemed bright instead of desperate. But what about Amara's future? What about her heart? Chioma's words echoed, you're trading the possibility of real love. Was she? Or was real love just a fairy tale she'd believed in at 22, before life had taught her that fairy tales ended in heartbreak? I need to tell you something too, Amara said suddenly. Since we're being honest. Obinna waited. I don't love you either, she admitted. I care about you. I respect you. I'm grateful to you. But love? I'm not sure I'm capable of that anymore either. Chukudi, David, whatever his name was, he broke something in me. Or maybe my family broke it when they threw me out. I don't know. But the part of me that believed in love died somewhere in those 5 years. She looked at Obinna. So maybe we're perfect for each other. Two broken people building something practical from the pieces. That's a sad foundation for a marriage, Obinna observed. Maybe, Amara agreed. Or maybe it's honest. We both know what this is. No illusions. No false promises. Just two people trying to do right by a child and a dying woman. Is that enough for you? Amara thought about her one-room apartment in Mushin. About working 3 jobs and still wondering how to pay for Zoe's school fees. About the constant fear that one illness, one accident, one piece of bad luck would destroy them completely. She thought about Zoe's face when Mrs. Azikiwe called her, my granddaughter. About the security of knowing her daughter would never be hungry, never be unsafe, never be limited by poverty. And she thought about 30 years from now, looking back at this choice. Would she regret marrying without love? Or would she regret letting pride and romantic ideals cost her daughter everything? Yes, she said finally. It's enough. If you can promise me 3 things. Name them. First, you never lie to me. Even when the truth is hard. I promise. Second, you'll be a good father figure to Zoe. Present, patient, loving. She deserves that. I promise. His voice was softer now. And third. Amara paused. If you ever have a chance at real love, if Adis comes back, or if you meet someone else who makes you feel alive, you'll tell me. You won't stay trapped in this marriage out of obligation. Obinna's eyes widened. You would let me go. I would want you to be happy, Amara said simply. The same way I'd want you to want me to be happy if I found someone. This is a partnership, Obinna. Not a prison. He stared at her for a long moment, something like wonder crossing his face. You're extraordinary, you know that. I'm practical, Amara corrected. I've learned that love is a luxury. Survival is essential. Maybe, Obinna said. Or maybe you're more capable of love than you think. Just a different kind than you expected. Before Amara could respond, there was a commotion downstairs, raised voices, Mrs. Nkechi protesting, and then footsteps thundering up the stairs. The door burst open, and Adi stood there. Amara knew immediately who she was, even without introduction. She was stunning, tall, dark-skinned, with natural hair in an elegant afro, wearing a simple but expensive dress that screamed European fashion. But more than her appearance, it was the way Obinna's entire body tensed, the way his breath caught, the way everything else in the room seemed to disappear when he looked at her. This was the woman he loved. Obinna, Adi said, her voice cultured with a slight British accent now. We need to talk. I just flew in from London. I saw the news about your wedding and she stopped, noticing Amara for the first time. Oh. You must be Amara. I am, Amara said, her voice steadier than she felt. Adis looked between them, reading the tension. I'm sorry to barge in. But Obinna, I need to speak with you. Privately. Please. Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Amara, Obinna said, though his voice was strained. We don't keep secrets. Adis' eyes flickered with something, surprise, respect, or maybe pain. All right. Then I'll be direct. She took a breath. I made a mistake. 3 years ago, when I told you we could never be together, I was wrong. I was grieving, and I was scared, and I pushed away the one person who understood me. Obinna had gone very still. I've spent 3 years in London trying to move on, Adis continued. Dating other men. Building a career. Convincing myself I was over you. But I'm not. I've never been. And when I saw you were getting married, I realized I was about to lose my last chance. She stepped closer. I love you, Obinna. I think I've always loved you, even when I was married to Emeka. I know that makes me terrible. I know it dishonors his memory. But it's the truth. And I couldn't let you marry someone else without telling you. The silence was deafening. Amara felt like she was watching a movie, disconnected from her own body. This was the moment. The moment where the man she was supposed to marry chose between her and his true love. The moment where Amara discovered if she was the heroine of her own story or just a supporting character in someone else's. Obinna looked at Adis, this woman he'd loved for years, who was finally saying the words he'd dreamed of hearing. Then he looked at Amara. Then at the garden, where Zuri was still playing. Why now? He asked quietly. Why not 3 years ago? Why not a year ago? Why now, 5 days before my wedding? Because I was a coward, Adis admitted. Because change is terrifying. Because I kept thinking I had more time. But then I saw you with her, with the little girl, and I realized, time runs out. Chances disappear. And if I didn't come now, I'd regret it forever. You regret it forever, Obinna repeated slowly. He turned to Amara. Could you give us a moment? This was it. He was choosing Adis. Of course he was. Who would choose a practical arrangement over true love? But as Amara moved toward the door, Obinna caught her hand. Wait, he said. Then, to Adis, no. Amara stays. Because whatever I say, she deserves to hear it. He stepped away from both women, collecting his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was clear and firm. Adis, I loved you for years. Mourned for years. Waited for years. And you're right, part of me will always love you. You were my best friend's wife, my first real heartbreak, my what if. Hope bloomed on Adi's face. But 3 years ago, you made your choice. You chose to move on, and I respected that. I built a life without you. And now, 5 days before my wedding, you're asking me to blow up that life because you've changed your mind. Obinna. I'm not finished, he said gently. You say you love me. But love isn't just words at the last minute. Love is showing up. Being present. Taking risks when they're hard, not just when you're about to lose something. Amara has shown me more courage in 3 weeks than I've seen in 3 years. He looked at Amara, and something in his expression made her breath catch. She was thrown out by her family, abandoned by the man who claimed to love her, and survived 5 years that would have broken most people. She's had every reason to become bitter, cruel, cynical. But instead, she's raised a beautiful, happy child. She's honest about her flaws. She gave me an out from this marriage just minutes ago because she wanted me to be happy more than she wanted security. He turned back to Adis. That's love. Not the romantic fantasy kind. But the real, messy, choosing someone everyday kind. And I think that's what I want. What I need. Tears were streaming down Adis' face. You're choosing her. I'm choosing the life I've committed to building, Obinna corrected gently. I'm choosing to honor my promises instead of chasing a dream that might disappear again when things get hard. I'm choosing growth over nostalgia. He walked to Adis and took her hands. You will always matter to me. But it's time for both of us to let go. To let Emeka rest in peace. To build new lives that don't revolve around what might have been. Adis sobbed once, then pulled herself together with visible effort. She was elegant even in heartbreak. I understand. I'm too late. You're not too late, Obinna said kindly. You're just finally free. Go live your life, Adis. Find someone who can love you without ghosts between you. You deserve that. She nodded, wiped her tears, and turned to Amara. Take care of him. He's one of the good ones. I know, Amara said softly. When Adis left, the room felt larger somehow. Lighter. As if a weight that had been pressing down for years had finally lifted. Obinna turned to Amara, and she saw something new in his eyes. Not love, exactly. But possibility. Are you sure? She asked. You just gave up the woman you've loved for years. No, Obinna corrected. I gave up a fantasy. There's a difference. He smiled, a real smile, not his careful public mask. Besides, you said it yourself. We are both broken. Maybe we can figure out how to heal together. That's very optimistic for a man who claims he can't love anymore. Maybe you're rubbing off on me. Downstairs, they could hear Mrs. Azikiwe calling for them. The wedding planner had arrived with final details. Life was moving forward, pulling them along. Amara looked at this man who'd chosen duty over passion, responsibility over romance. Who'd offered her safety when she had nothing. Who'd stood up for her when the world tried to tear her down. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined at 22. But maybe fairy tales were overrated. Maybe this honest partnership between two scared people trying to build something good, maybe this was better. More real. More lasting. Okay, she said, extending her hand formally. Partners. Obinna took her hand, and his grip was warm, steady, real. Partners. 4 days later, they were married in 2 ceremonies that felt like dreams. The traditional Igbo wedding was beautiful, Amara in burgundy and gold, Obinna in ivory, both families, hers reluctantly, under strict legal agreements, present to witness. Zuri was the flower girl, beaming with pride. The church wedding was simpler but profound. As Amara walked down the aisle, she thought about all the paths that had led her here. The heartbreak. The shame. The survival. The unexpected grace. When the pastor asked if she took this man, she said I do and meant it. Not because she was in love, but because she was choosing partnership. Choosing Zay's future. Choosing herself. And when Obinna kissed her, their first real kiss, it was gentle, respectful, but not entirely without warmth. Maybe that was enough to start with. 6 months later, things had settled into a rhythm. Zuri attended one of Lagos's best schools and thrived. Mrs. Azikiwe had passed peacefully, holding both Amara's and Obinna's hands, content that her family was whole. Chukwudi had left Nigeria entirely, last heard of in Dubai running some questionable business venture. Amara had started taking online nursing courses, finally pursuing the dream she'd abandoned at 22. Obinna supported her completely, adjusting his schedule to be present for Zuri when Amara had classes. They lived separate rooms in the mansion, as agreed. But sometimes, late at night, they'd find themselves in the kitchen making tea and talking about their days, about Zuri, about their past. The conversations were easy now, comfortable. One night, Obinna said, I saw Addis got engaged. To that Englishman. She looks happy. How do you feel about that? Amara asked carefully. Obinna considered. Relieved, actually. Like the door finally closed on that chapter. Like I can stop looking back. Good, Amara said. Then, daringly, does that mean you're ready to look forward? Obinna met her eyes, and something passed between them. Something new. Something that felt like the beginning of something neither had expected. Maybe, he said softly. Are you? Amara thought about the girl she'd been, desperate, broken, sure she'd never trust anyone again. Then she thought about the woman she was becoming, strong, educated, partnered with someone who respected her. Maybe, she echoed. Obinna smiled, reached across the table, and took her hand. Not formally. Not as a business arrangement. But as a man reaching for his wife. And for the first time since their wedding, Amara didn't pull away. Maybe love wasn't what she thought it was at 22. Maybe it wasn't fireworks and passion and desperate need. Maybe love was choosing someone every day. Building trust brick by brick. Growing from partnership into something deeper, stronger, more real. Maybe love was exactly this, two broken people healing together, one day at a time. As they sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, Amara realized something profound. She'd been so focused on surviving that she'd forgotten about living. But now, finally, she was ready to learn. The end. Thank you for watching this journey of resilience, redemption, and unexpected grace. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear a message of hope. Remember, your past doesn't define your future, and sometimes the best love stories aren't the ones that start with passion, they're the ones built on respect, honesty, and choosing each other every single day. Comment below, do you believe Amara and Obinna will fall in love? What would you have chosen in Amara's place? Share your thoughts with our community. From all of us at Kismat's Mythic Tales, thank you for being part of this story. Until next time, may you find the courage to choose your own redemption.